All right, well, we're back at the SD-WAN SASE stand, and I'm joined here now by Mike Scott, the former Houston Astros pitcher, I believe, but also technical product marketing manager for VMware. Why don't you just do a quick intro?
Hi, I'm Mike Scott. I'm a senior technical product manager with VMware in the SASE product.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about your edge network intelligence, but before we do that, I just want to give a little background, I think, on why this is important. You know, we live in a world today where customer and employee experience mean everything. In fact, my research shows that customer experience initiatives is the #1 digital transformation project companies are going through. Little known, interesting factoid: last year, 2/3 of millennials admitted they changed loyalties to a brand because of a single bad experience. You talk to employees now; they're changing jobs at a pace never seen before, and they're going to go work at a company where they have the best chance to be successful, and that has a lot to do with the internal tools they use, things like Zoom. And so if you have a good experience, you have a good chance of retaining those employees. If you have a bad experience, well, you have a good chance of churning them again. And so, Mike, when you talk to customers, how are they thinking about the apps they use and the problems they have, and what's really changed in the world?
Well, I think what's really changed is not only the number of apps, but the number of devices that are on the typical network. Especially if you look at a campus-wide network, there's lots of Wi-Fi, there's APs, there's controllers, end-user devices. It's a complex system, and then when something goes wrong, it's typically not a case of where you don't have enough information that there's a problem, but operators, IT departments have too much information. So they're flooded with number of alarms, logs, and things like that, and it really takes them a long time to go through those, kind of consolidate them, and get to the root cause.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up an interesting point in complexity. I think one of the least talked about impacts of the pandemic was the change to the IT organization. Right? We talk about the changes in the way we learn, the way we shop, how different it is to work from home. Well, the IT organization has got to support all this stuff now, right? And in conjunction with that, because of things like SASE and SD-WAN that we talked about, the environment is more complicated, right? And so now I believe if you're going to be a successful IT pro, you need new tools and new processes, and I believe your Edge Network Intelligence, or E&I, is designed to help them with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what E&I does is it's an AI-based analytics engine, and so it takes a number of different feeds from the network. It consolidates those, it converts them into metadata, and then it pushes them out to an AI engine in the cloud. And one of the really clever things about the way it works is it establishes dynamic baselines. There's no fixed baselines for different performance KPIs. What it does is it determines if, after determining this baseline, it'll figure out if something is out of compliance, and then it will not only alert on that dynamically, but then it'll also correlate other corresponding logs or indications that might be part of the same root cause.
Yeah, so the dynamic baselines I find fascinating, because there's an axiom in IT: you can't measure what you can't see. Well, you also can't see what you can't measure, right? And a lot of times, if you don't know what your baseline is, it's hard to understand whether you're actually out of compliance with that, right? So you actually, in real time, can change that baseline based on the current conditions.
That's correct. It's a continuously learning environment. So as conditions change, it's continuously updating what that baseline is.
Okay, Mike, will you introduce us to E&I? You're going to give us a little demo here. So what are we looking at?
So this is the initial dashboard. When you log into Edge Network Intelligence, this is where you'll land. So what we've got here is this is actually a live customer. This is their anonymized data that they've been kind enough to allow us to use for demo purposes. This is a healthcare solution.
So this is actual real data?
Correct. It's just been anonymized to remove any sort of identifying information so we can actually use it. One of the challenges with E&I is that you do have to have some real data from a real network to kind of get some meaningful.
Of course.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the analysis tab up here, and then we're going to look at like a 2-week periodicity. And what we're going to see is there's going to be some incidents based on priority. So you can see here the incidents that have been identified by the system. I'm going to choose one here, this P3 down here, DHCP protocol latency issues. The reason I'm picking that one is it's affecting 280 users.
And so just for the video on the dashboard, it does show how many incidents you have and the percent of frequency. So that's a good way for IT to be able to drill down into what's important, because I think often, and I'm a former IT pro myself, is you get fixated on some problems, but then if you see it's only affecting 4 users, maybe you want to move off of that into something that's a little more critical. And so you're actually helping them prioritize their troubleshooting tasks.
So if we drill down into this problem, You can see that this is the dynamic baselining for the performance of DHCP that's been established by the AI engine, and there's a standard deviation, so you can see that this incident is actually outside the standard deviation of the dynamically established baseline.
Okay, and that's very easy to see where that is.
Correct. So going down, we'll look into some more detail. So we can come down to here and the DHCP offer RSPs. If we click on that, we've got a pop-up that indicates why that is an error, what constitutes the error, and then we can drill deeper into the specific DHCP server that's been identified with the problem. So we're going to go to network history here. And then in network history, we can compare internal benchmarks with, for this particular customer, with industry established benchmarks that we've measured.
So that's an interesting use of the cloud, right? If you were to run this on-prem, you actually would have a hard time being able to compare against other companies. But
Correct.
because you're in the cloud, you're able to gather data from all your customers.
That's correct,
Yeah.
and then do a comparison for DHCP performance across multiple customers.
Yeah, so you might think you have a good performing environment, but when in fact maybe you don't compared to your peers.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go to health and remediation. What this is going to do is give us some dynamic recommendations of where to look to solve the problem. So here in health and remediation, we're going to click on the filter, and then we're going to see that 95% of the problem is caused by the DHCP server being not being reachable.
So your ability to drill down on that, my research shows that 90% of troubleshooting time is actually identifying the problem. Most engineers are pretty smart, right? Once they know where the problem is, they can go fix it. Finding that, though, is that sometimes it's been described as a needle in a stack of needles.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So if we look at the root cause here and go down, we can see that this particular DHCP VLAN 3901 is responsible for 89% of the users who are unable to get a DHCP address. So now that you have that information, you know which VLAN, you know which server is the culprit, you can focus on where the root cause is and fix it quickly.